Yo people, welcome back. This is the King Boss and welcome back to Ron's Tech Hub. And in this one I'm going to be looking at a very unique and special device that's very close to my heart. Many of you might not know what this is, but let's just take a look. Alright, so here we have this device. It's in a box. I haven't opened it yet. It's called a Raspberry Pi 4, and this is the 8GB model. Now what this is a single board computer. So those two screens I just showed you earlier that you can see in the background there, that's a typical desktop PC or a laptop linked to two monitors, right? The same capabilities can be had from this single board computer here. So this thing is this actual length and width of a credit card, but obviously the depth is relatively thicker. But this is a full-fledged computer. Now let's do the unboxing. Right, so let me actually go ahead and show you guys what this looks like. So I'm going to open from here. It says open here, so pull this off, lift this up. Oh, and there we have it, a Raspberry Pi 4, and again this is a 8GB model. So let's show you that there. But before I jump into this any further, let me quickly show you something else. So this is essentially a desktop PC, right? Now this can be used as both a microcontroller and a microprocessor, right? A microcontroller, as its name states, controls other devices. So let's say you have a motor, a few sensors, you can control it from a microcontroller. Now this is a Arduino 2560. This is not the original version. This is the version created by some other company, but it does exactly the same thing, exactly the same specs. This is a microcontroller. Now if I open this, as you can see, it kind of looks similar to that one, right? So most people, when they see this, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference, but if you know what you're looking for, there's a massive difference, right? It looks similar. We have the CPU in the center there, CPU in the center there, but this is not as fast. This doesn't use as much power. It doesn't get as hot. It doesn't have as much capabilities, right? Whereas this, the microprocessor, the actual desktop PC, can do literally everything your laptop can do, but it will just do it at a slower speed because it's using not older technology, but just smaller, more compact technology. So it has to run a lot slower. Let me put that to one side. So here we have the Raspberry Pi 4. Now there are hundreds, probably hundreds of thousands of videos on YouTube already about this, but this is such a pet project of mine. I did both my uni dissertations with the Raspberry Pi, and I just loved everything about it. It's such an amazing device. So let's quickly go around the device, okay? All right, so first we have two HDMI ports. So that is HDMI 1 and 2, or 0 and 1 as it normally is. So these are mini or micro HDMI ports, and you do get cables like this. I'm going to show you guys this later on, where I can plug two monitors into this tiny device and have two screens working at the same time. Let me put that to the back. Here we have the USB-C power port. So this is using USB-C. I think this is amazing because before it was using micro USB, wasn't that great, because as we all know, micro USB is being phased out. Coming around, we have this port here. Actually gives you composite video and audio at the same time. And yes, these HDMI ports can transmit audio as well. We have, I think this one's a CSI or DSI. Let me bring this a bit closer. See? So this is a CSI, that's camera serial port, and that one's a display port. Okay, so you can plug a display into this, and the Raspberry Pi does have its own display that you can buy from the company. So again, that's for display, and that's for actually plugging in a camera. But saying that, when I flick around to this side, we have fully fledged USB ports, so you can plug cameras in this way as well. So these on this side, these are USB 2. As you can see, it doesn't have the traditional USB 3 blue board on the inside. So this is USB 2, this is USB 3, and yes, that is an Ethernet port. So again, the size of a credit card. I actually didn't bring my wallet with me today, so I don't have one to show you guys the size comparison. On this side, we have what's known as GPIO pins, general purpose input output pins. So some of these will be input, some will be output, some will be power rails, some will be ground, so that's 0 volt rails. We have the CPU here in the middle. What else do we have? I think okay, no, they've moved the RAM. The RAM used to be on the underside of this. We have a memory card slot here, so that's where this comes in handy. I've got my memory card here, but this actually uses a micro SD card slot. But for me to write the image onto here, I had to use this adapter. So I'm going to pull this out and put that into here at some point. Let's go back around to the front. So I actually don't know which one's a RAM, but we have RAM, we're going to have Wi-Fi, we're going to have Bluetooth, and all of these, let's see if we can get closer. All of these actually come together and give you a full desktop experience. This is going to have a full desktop operating system. It's not going to just be like the Arduino I showed you earlier, where you plug that into another computer and you program it. This is the computer. You don't plug this into anything other than to the wall socket. This is your computer, okay? All right, so first things first, you need to go to the Raspberry Pi website. I'll put the link in the description, or once you Google Raspberry Pi, it will come up with the main website. You're going to go to software, and in software you're going to see this, obviously Raspberry Pi OS. That's the name of the operating system that goes onto the Raspberry Pi. Now you can use other operating systems, but this is the one I'm going to stick with because it, in my opinion, it offers the best support. You get frequent updates, it's really stable, really low usage on the resources. It's just all around good, right? You're going to scroll down. Now they have an option here which is relatively new to me. I've been using the Raspberry Pi since the Raspberry Pi 1 or 2, I believe, and this is a new method. I've never used this method, so I'm going to stick to the one I know. This one will work perfectly fine. You get an installer, and that's how you write your image onto your SD card. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to manually install an operating system image, right? So I'm going to see all download options, and here we have the main 3 options. So let me just quickly explain what these are. We have Raspberry Pi OS Lite. This is the one I would recommend for people who are doing mainly command line programming or very light projects that don't need the full operating system, right? This is the average one. So we have Raspberry Pi OS with desktop. This is going to have the normal Linux stroke Windows desktop that you've been accustomed to. And this one is going to have all the recommended software that they give. Now the difference is that this is 400 megabytes. This is roughly 1,000 megabytes. Say, let's just say 1,200 megabytes. And this is almost 3,000 megabytes, so 3 gigabytes roughly, right? Now that's the main difference there. Now for me personally, I like to have my operating system as light and as small as possible, and that's one of the things I love about this, right? Now I wish Windows 10 or 11 would do this, where they give you a very stripped down version of the operating system and simply allow you to install or bolt on the features that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and download this one here that says Raspberry Pi OS with desktop. I think this is the one that most people should get, especially if you're coming into this for the first time. So I'm going to go download. That's going to take roughly 2 minutes. Let me scroll down and see if there's anything else I need from this page. Third-party software, no. I already have the program I need to write this to the SD card, right? The name of the program I'm going to be using is called Rufus. Now Rufus is quite an advanced one. There's another one called Balena Etcher, I think it's called. Let's see if I spelled it right. Yeah, roughly. So there we go. You can download this as well. This gives you 3 steps and it's super easy. You simply select, so you download the program, obviously. You select the image, so the ISO that's downloading here. You select the drive, and the drive in this case is going to be the SD card, and then you just click flash and that's it. Work done. Actually, to show that, I'm just going to go ahead and download this as well. Let's see, make sure I get the right one. I'm going to do the portable one, which means I don't have to install anything. I simply run the executable and it just gives me what I need straight away, right? So I'll come back to you guys when these are finished and we'll take it from there. Alright, so now I have both those downloads finished, as you can see here. I'm going to go to my downloads folder and show you guys exactly what's in there. Now here I have Balena Etcher, sorry, and here I have the Raspberry Pi OS. Now, as you can see, this is a normal executable, so you can just double click on this and it should open. Now, this is a zip file, and what this means is that you have to extract or get the contents out of this zip file, right? And this is a compressed file, so it just makes the file slightly smaller, so it's easier to download, easier to move around. So to do that, Windows, I do believe, has a built-in file extractor, but I have a separate one. But it's more or less going to be the same thing. Right click, this is the Windows one, by the way. Right click onto the file, select extract all, and it's going to come up with this option here. Just click extract and that's it. Some people will have this option checked by default. It's going to say show extracted files when completed. I mean, I'm already in the folder anyway, so I don't really need to do that. Just click extract, and I'll come back when this, I'll speed this part through actually. So I'll let this run and I'll speed this through. Alright, so now we have that extracted. I'm going to go ahead and show you the contents of this folder here. So when I go into it, there's only going to be one file, and this is an IMG file. It's not an ISO, as I said before. An IMG is more or less the same as an ISO. It's a container file, so it holds other files within it, right? We're not going to worry too much about that. So we're going to go back. I'm going to now plug my SD card into my laptop. You can go ahead and do the same thing if this is the steps you're following. I'm going to open Balena Etcher. Let me close this. This was an Android, this was an SSD, sorry, not an SSD, an SD card in an Android phone, so it has all the typical Android folders, but I'm going to wipe this. So I'm going to open Etcher. It's going to ask if I'm sure I want to open this file because it might damage my computer. I'm going to just choose yes for me, but please make sure that you download it from the right source. I'm going to put the website link in the description again, so you can go there and find it. Here we go. So again, 3 easy steps. I'm going to do flash from file. So I'm just going to click on that. This is where it browses. So I'm going to go to my downloads folder here, and I'm going to select the thing I just extracted. Okay, so not the original zip folder, but the new one that had the IMG file. Select that. Select the IMG file there. The target, I'm going to select the 32 gigabyte SD card. So SDHC card, 32 gigs, drive D. Now be careful, you might have other drives like a memory stick linked to your USB ports, or if you have multiple drives in your PC, just be careful. Now, an easy way to check this is if you go on Windows 10 to this PC, you're going to clearly see, for example, I have my SSD here, my local drive, which is normally called C, and anything extra is going to go up incrementally. So C, D, E, F, G, so on and so forth, right? So the only thing I have added is D. You might already have one that's D and so on. So I'm going to make sure I click on this one. I don't have any more anyway. I'm going to do select, and then from there on I simply do flash. It's going to start. This is Windows asking me if I'm sure I want to do this, so on and so forth, right? Now that's it. I'm just going to let this run. I'm going to stop the video because this is going to take a couple of minutes, and I'll come back when this is finished. I've completed, well, the process has now completed. When it stops, you will have quite a few folders just pop up on screen, because it recognizes this plugged in SD card or USB stick as a new drive that was just plugged in. But don't worry, just close all of that down. I'm going to close this program now, and I'm going to actually go ahead, plug my SD card into my Raspberry Pi, and I'll continue from there. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next part. All right, so I've got my Raspberry Pi. Put that down there. I've got my memory stick. So this is not a Samsung one. This is just some 32 gigabyte one I have. Put that there. I'm going to get rid of this. I have my HDMI to micro or mini HDMI. So I'm going to actually plug this in. Let me tear this open to one of these monitors at the back so that I can actually show you guys what this looks like. So there we go. So this is just a normal HDMI port, or the normal HDMI layout we're used to. So this will actually go into a TV as well. And on here, again, as I've said, I cannot remember if this is micro HDMI or mini, but regardless, it will fit into one of these ports here. and then plug directly into a monitor. Got that there. And I actually got a starter kit which gives me heat sinks as well, because again, this is a fully fledged computer. It does sometimes run hot, so you will need, in some cases, a heat sink depending on what you're doing. Now there's one thing about this that I actually do want to test out at some point. I want to de-lid this CPU here. Some of you might know this or might not. CPUs come with that lid on top of it to try and protect what's underneath and to help with heat transfer as well. However, this looks a bit high or a bit raised to me. So what I want to do ideally is to de-lid it and put the heatsink, the aluminum heatsink, directly onto it. Now I wish this was a copper heatsink because those do transfer heat a lot better, but hey, that should be fine. I actually have a fan as well, but I won't put the fan on today. So yeah, I want to de-lid that. I've got my power plug here. This is a USB-C power plug, obviously. There we go. I wish it was black as well. Would have been a lot nicer because everything else is going to be black. Put that there. And I have this tiny device, because the Raspberry Pi, to make it so cheap, they cut a lot of corners in terms of this thing doesn't even have a switch to turn it on. So what happens is as soon as you plug it into the wall and give it power, it will switch on. So this tiny device cable thing here, what will happen, I'll plug my charger into this and I'll plug this into the Raspberry Pi, and this actually has a switch in the middle. So when I hit this switch, hopefully you guys can hear that, it will actually transfer the power then to the Raspberry Pi, and it will turn on normally. Now when you do shut the computer down, it does go off normally, but when you're powering it on, I prefer to have a switch than to go and switch something on from the wall. All right, so there we have all our components. I'm gonna go ahead in the next section and put the heatsink on, put the memory card in, and actually plug it into the monitor and show you what it looks like. Okay, so I finally finished plugging everything in, putting everything on there. It does look a bit messy now, but forget about that. I have already written the operating system to the SD card, so I'm going to plug this into the wall socket using the adapter that came with it, and I'm going to power this on and show you what it looks like on an actual PC. But before I do that, I'm going to plug in my mouse and keyboard into the USB ports off screen, because it's going to be a bit awkward to do it, and I'll be right back. Don't know what happened there, but you guys missed the entire boot sequence, I'm afraid. So again, this is what the Raspberry Pi looks like. This is what this tiny single board computer does. Okay, all right, so here we have our desktop, just like we would on a Windows machine. So this over here on the left, that's a Windows machine. This is Raspbian OS. It is a version of Linux, right? So that's a completely free open source operating system, but it has almost everything that you would need. All right, so just like Windows and other operating systems, we have, I guess, the start menu and the taskbar. So here in the taskbar, we have Chromium. So this is the open source version of Chrome that allows you to do exactly the same thing as Chrome allows you to do. Okay, it's a fully fledged web browser. Now remember, I'm not connected to the internet yet, so the internet-based stuff won't work. But maybe you can even look over here. We have the internet connection option, so we have Wi-Fi over here, and we also have Bluetooth built into that tiny device again. Next to that, we have the file manager. So just like on Windows and everything else, you can browse your files. And then here we have our command line. Okay, so for example, if I do ls, it gives me all files and folders within that folder or within that directory. Let me close that. This is essentially the start menu. And from here, I can go programming, and I've got Genie programming editor. I've got Thunny Python IDE. Here on internet, I've got Chromium browser. Sound and video, I've got VLC media player. So just like on a Windows machine, you can play your videos. Graphics, I've got image viewer. Now you can install programs like GIMP on this, GIMP. That will work perfectly fine. Accessories, you have archiver, calculator, file manager, PDF viewer, Raspberry Pi diagnostics, SD card copier, task manager, terminal, text editor. On the help, we have bookshelf, Debian references, get started help projects, preferences, add or remove software, appearance settings, main menu. Okay, I'm not going to read through all of this, but I've read most of it already. But this is a fully fledged operating system. So if you did want to download something, you can go ahead and download that from the internet directly, or I believe they do have a new store which you can download stuff from. Here we go, recommended software. This will probably take you to their own app store that you can pull software in from. But again, I don't have any internet connection, so that won't work. Well, thank you guys for watching. I did stop the video quite abruptly because I realized the video was getting way too long. It's already 21 minutes. So thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. I will be doing more electronic stroke computer science, stroke software stuff, stroke hardware stuff in the future. So if you are interested in that, stay tuned. Peace.